So what I'm going to prep now are pH solutions. So if we're going to investigate how pH affects enzymatic activity, I need to make different pH solutions. So I'm first going to make a pH buffer of 3. And this is super easy because I have an envelope that has my chemicals already divvied out. And then all I need to do is add 500 milliliters of water to those chemicals, and I will have a pH buffer of 3. Shake really, really well, make sure everything is dissolved well, and my pH buffer of 3 is ready. And I'm just going to keep on repeating this process. So notice that I've cleaned out my cuvettes from the first investigation, and I'll put them in order. From 1 through 5. And the first thing I'm going to add is my substrate. And remember, our substrate is the hydrogen peroxide. So I have my 0.1 hydrogen peroxide solution, and I figured out from investigation 1 that 3 milliliters was the optimal activity for that substrate concentration for that enzyme. So we're going to use 3 milliliters in each of these cuvettes. So I know that that gave me the best reaction rate. Now that I have 3 milliliters of my substrate in each of my cuvettes, I'm ready to begin adding my pH buffer. And the first pH buffer that I'm going to add is pH buffer 3. So I'm going to add 2 milliliters of pH buffer 3. I'm going to shake it out, make sure it's nice and mixed. I'm adding 2 milliliters so I can get to my overall volume of 5. So pH 3 is going into cuvette 1, and I have 2 milliliters of that. pH is done. And I'm just making sure that I get a nice, clean syringe for pH 5, and I'm adding that one next to cuvette number 2. So clean syringe, 2 mils of pH 5 are going into the second cuvette. And then I have my neutral pH of 7. Take 2 mils of pH 7, making sure I don't have any air bubbles. That's going to go into cuvette 3. Cuvette 4 is going to get pH 9. And then our most basic pH is going to be pH of 11. And I'm digging deep, spilling a little bit. And 2 mils of pH 11 is in cuvette 5. So, made a little bit of a mess. Gotta clean that up. I have my substrate, I have my pH buffer. The next thing I need to add is my glycol. If I do not add glycol, I'm not going to see any color change. Glycol reacts with oxygen. Oxygen is one of the products of this reaction. And I'm not going to be able to gather data on the reaction rate if I do not add glycol. So I'm adding 1 milliliter of my glycol to each cuvette. So that's done. 1 ml of glycol is in each of my cuvettes. So my total volume, if I look at my 3 mils of substrate, 2 mils of pH buffer, 1 ml of glycol, so my total volume is 6 milliliters. So I'm ready to begin my investigation. I'm going to follow the same practice that I did in investigation 1. So remember that we need to make sure that there are no fingerprints or stray droplets of liquid. And we're going to blank our machine. Let that machine become steady. Blank it. Make sure that it reads 100% transmission and 0 absorption, which it does. Get my phone out. I'm going to take measurements every 20 seconds. And I'm just preparing myself because that first 20 seconds comes very quickly. My enzyme's ready. My timer's ready. Remove the cuvette. Get 50 microliters of enzyme. Start my timer. Add my enzyme. Cover with paraffin. Mix gently. Remove any fingerprints. Get it back in the machine. And at 20 seconds, I have an absorption of 0.006. And looking at 40 seconds, I have 0.009. Looking at 60 seconds, I have a reading of 0.01. Next is a minute and 20 seconds, and at a minute and 20 seconds, I see an absorption of 0.012. Noticing that this reaction is very slow. At a minute 40, I see an absorption of 0.015. So the reaction is still progressing. It's just very, very slow. And then at 2 minutes, I have an absorption of 0.015 as well. So notice my reaction stopped. I'm going to still go ahead and complete the rest of the investigation just to make sure to see if maybe it's super slow. At 220, I have 0.016. We're going to look at 2 minutes and 40 seconds. 0.017, so it is slowly creeping up. And at 3 minutes, I have 0.018, and that's my final absorption for cuvette 1 with a pH of 3. And not surprisingly, when I take this out, I don't see a big color change. That one's done. Look at cuvette 2. Remember, cuvette 2 is looking at a higher pH. 5 is still acidic, not as acidic as 3. Let's blank this cuvette. Getting everything ready to do my experiment on cuvette 2. I'm going to add 50 microliters of enzyme. Start my timer. Gently mix my enzyme in my sample. Remove any fingerprints. Get it back in the machine. In 20 seconds, I see 0 absorption. Nothing at 40. Still no reaction at 1 minute. I'm just going to make sure that this is mixed well. At 1:20, I see an absorption of 0.030. So notice that I didn't see any reaction happening at all, and I just gave it a quick mix. Sometimes if it's not mixed well, that color isn't distributed, because the enzyme wasn't distributed properly. So looking at 1:40, 0.067. At 2 minutes, I have 0.107. So I can see that this reaction is doing better at a pH 5. If I look at 2 minutes and 20 seconds, I see an absorption of 0.147. And then 2 minutes and 40 seconds is coming up. And I see an absorption of 0.186. And then our final absorption will be taken at 3 minutes. The absorption at 3 minutes is 0.228. So that reaction and that data set is completed. For cuvette 2, notice the difference between cuvette 1 and cuvette 2 in color. Here is my neutral pH. pH 7 is in cuvette 3. I'll blank the machine. Adding enzyme. Add paraffin. Make sure to give it a nice mix. Remove any fingerprints. And 20 seconds is happening right now, so 0.028. Seconds, I have 0.066. Seconds, absorption of 0.103. We have 1 minute and 20 seconds and absorption of 0.137. Coming up on 1 minute and 40 seconds, and I see an absorption of 0.172. It's 2 minutes, and at 2 minutes I see an absorption of 0.2. At 2 minutes and 20 seconds, our absorption is 0.23. Two minutes, 40 seconds, absorption is 0.257. And then now looking at 3 minutes, our final absorption for this experiment is 0.284. Cuvette 4 has a pH of 9, a little basic. I'm going to put that in, make sure that our machine is calibrated properly, and it looks like it's slightly out of calibration. So I'm going to blank the machine. Starting the timer and adding enzyme. Removing any fingerprints. And at 20 seconds, we have an absorption of 0.007 for our pH of 9. Seconds, we have an absorption of 0.01. Looking at a minute, we have an absorption still of 0.01. And then make sure that this is mixed properly. Now we have a time of 1 minute, 20 seconds. I see an absorption of 0.011. And 1 minute, 40 seconds. I see an absorption that is constant, 0.011. Coming up on 2 minutes. At 2 minutes now, and I see that it raised slightly to 0.012. At 2 minutes and 20 seconds, we still have 0.012. minutes, 40 seconds. Still 0.012. And finally, 3 minutes, we're done here. And it dropped very slightly, so we have 0.011. That's our final absorption. And see, we do not have much of a reaction at all. Let's look at our last cuvette, our most basic solution here. It's a pH of 11. I'm going to make sure that that's blinked. Go ahead and add enzyme. Start our timer. Add paraffin. Mix well. Remove any liquid or fingerprints. And we are at 20 seconds now, and I see an absorption of 0.002. Seconds, I have an absorption of 0.004. We're now at 1 minute, 0.002. One minute, 20 seconds, and we have an absorption that's still 0.002. One minute, 40 seconds, 0.001. Now looking at a time of 2 minutes right now, still 0.001. Two minutes and 20 seconds, I have an absorption that's still 0.001. And then we have 2 minutes and 40 seconds coming up. Still no change, 0.001. And at 3 minutes, still no change, 0.001. And investigation 2, looking at the effect of pH on enzyme activity, is completed.